So let's open up with a prayer. So Father, we ask that you separate us from all ego, pride, and judgment. Allow us to establish and build a relationship with you. Keep us honest. And allow us to love other people like you love us. Allow me to carry your message and not my own. Amen. So we went through Bill's story, doctor's opinion, and I was talking with my brother again this week, and we were talking about the third tradition, which is a desire to stop drinking and using. But as we went through the forwards, it said an honest desire. And so I knew I was an alcoholic and a drug addict for a while, for a pretty extended period of time. So it's and a requirement. I did want to stop. Like I've been using against my will for years. I'd get out of prison and use again, and get out of rehab, use again, and get into trouble, use again, and get all these consequences. If I use, this is what's going to happen, and I'd use again. So it's more to it. And he was telling me about the surrender piece of it. So you got one part of it, which is like, okay, yeah, I belong here. I'm definitely an alcoholic and a drug addict, and I've been admitting that for a long time. And then the second part is like the complete surrender to that this is the solution. That this will help me. And and the cool thing for me was I had evidence. I had evidence in my brother who was on Newcastle Ave with me, robbing and beating people, and did all the same stuff I did, institutions, rehab, I mean, all the whole nine. So I had evidence when it worked for him, but it was kind of like, I don't know, maybe my brother's different. But then other people would go to the program and they'd be involved and stuff like that. So there was like evidence that this thing really worked. But there was no one to take me through the book. So we went through like the doctor's opinion, and when we were going through there, I remember a specific thing that happened to me. I on the ninth step, we're not even there. I'm just saying it. So going through this work, I woke up spiritually, which is like the whole idea that something is greater than me, man. Relieved me of pride and ego, and I was completely beaten and obliterated. I had no other options, although I've been blaming this dude the whole time for everything that took place. Look, the whole thing we're doing right now is a first step. And the reason that we're doing this and we're going through the work thoroughly like this, and to give you a better understanding of your condition, so you can finally realize yourself that that's what this whole thing did for me, is that it brought me to a realization that, oh my gosh, there is no human aid. And specifically, I gave you the story of Good Samaritan Hospital right down the street from where I currently am in West Palm Beach. And I woke up, me and my friend OD, like I said, and he passed away. And I went out, used again, and then I was back in the hospital 6 hours later, and I'm begging this doctor to save my life. And she couldn't. And I ended up going and then waking up and going through this work and stuff like that. I started to wake up spiritually. And every time I woke up, I was a complete a-hole. How dare you? And they would tell me, we just saved you. And I was like, you ain't saved nothing, And I got to go back and make an amends to them people. And I went in there. I've been in there so many times. I OD'd and flatlined. I don't know how many times. And I went back to the hospital and I approached the booth where, like, you check in, and I said, hey, I'd like to talk to the people that revived me. And he said, okay, what's your name? I gave him my name, and he said, what shift was it? And I thought about it, and I was like, all of them. Every last one of the shifts had something to do with saving my life. And I remember just being ignorant and like, how dare get, and never believing in a power. And that's what this whole thing is trying to get me to. The whole first step is like getting me to let go of me, right? And let go of the idea that there is anything, any power in the world that can help me. And that's why we're going through this like this. And I remember the aunt, and I would go to the meeting and and I was talking about this today, and I would go and try to scoop this ant up on my finger or something, and the ant would like always do some NFL moves and try to dip and dodge away from me. Then I would get the piece of paper and my finger, and like I would outmaneuver the ant and get him on the piece of paper, and I'd take him outside. And I did that like 3 or 4 times, and I would do it, and then and the crazy thing is, like, the third time that it happened to me, I was like, man, this freaking ants are always an ant, like by itself, traveling on his own. And it dawned on me, like, I wonder what the ant is thinking. I wonder what this ant would be thinking. What would he say if he had thoughts and speech? And I came to the conclusion that he probably like, this mother effer done picked me up, took me outside. I don't know where I'm at. I don't know where my people are. I don't know how to get back. All I was trying to do was like, I was traveling on my own, trying to look for some food for my family. And this clown, this idiot, comes and picks me up and takes me outside. Now I don't know where I'm at. Completely hopeless and broken, alone, right? And he had to depend on, he had to depend on something. And then, like, I in another book, right, I just tell you the truth. The Bible, and it was in Isaiah, and I remember this passage came up to me from the Bible 55, Isaiah 55, and it said, my thoughts are not your thoughts, and my ways are not your ways. And that's how I thought about the ant. I was like, the ant's thoughts and my thoughts are not alike. They don't know. His thoughts and my thoughts are completely different. His thoughts are like, this mother, how dare he? And my thoughts were, I spent the time to get him on the paper because 50 people were about to walk into the meeting and trample him and kill him. So I gave him a shot at new life. And although he's pissed, I tried to save him. And that's kind of like, God's thoughts and my thoughts are not alike, man. His thoughts and our thoughts are completely different. It might not look like it, even though his way is better for us, and it don't look like it for us. However, it's a much better way, just like my way was a much better way for the ant. And it allowed me to let go of some stuff like, oh my gosh, like he does got my back. Like, it just don't look like it sometimes because my puny thoughts think that it should be this way and that way, not knowing about everything else. So that's the main thing we're on, is the solution. The solution. 12 steps, the solution. So let's get started. Chapter 2. There is a solution. We of Alcoholics Anonymous know thousands of men and women who were once as hopeless as Bill. We're talking about millions and millions now. Nearly all have recovered. That's it. That's what it says. Recovered. They have solved the drink problem. They solved the drinking and drug problem. I wrote next to that, it's done, move on. We are average Americans, all sections of this country, and many of its occupations are represented. You go into a meeting, there's doctors, lawyers, there's all type of people there. Priests, everything. As well as many political, economic, social, and religious backgrounds. We're people who normally would not mix. You could have blood and the Crip in the same room, man, and they're there to do one thing: recover. We're people who normally would not mix, but there exists among us a fellowship, a friendliness, and an understanding which is indescribably wonderful. If you've been here and you've been through the work, you've had some experience with this, and it's the most amazing thing, man. Unbelievable. And it is indescribably wonderful, man. We get to see each other and just, man, greet each other with hugs and love and carry the message and talk to the newcomers, man, and trying to wake other people up. So we are like the passengers of a great liner, the moment after shipwreck. We're on chapter 2, page 17. We're like the passenger was a great liner the moment after ship rescue from shipwreck, when camaraderie, joyousness, and democracy pervade the vessel from steerage, underline steerage, above steerage, put low class, to captain's table, underline captain's table, and above that, I write high class. So, Titanic, Leonardo DiCaprio, he's trying to swindle his waiter Rose and holler at her and stuff, and you got he's doing whatever he can to get the Rose. So you got high class at the top of the ship and low class at the bottom of the ship. There was no supposed to be interacting. That's why even in the movie he was trying to creep around and get to her. Rich people, low class people, they didn't mingle. They didn't talk to each other. It wasn't like a big thing that everyone would communicate. So they hit an iceberg. Ship's going down. Everybody's in the water. High class, low class alike. Everybody's in the water. And everybody's trying to do one thing in that water. Survive. High class and low class people are holding each other, trying to keep warm, talking to each other, beefing it up, because now we're all in the water. All that I was rich, high class, low class, and classes, period, are out the window. Everything's out the window. We're trying to do one thing, and that's survive. That's it. But unlike the feelings of the ship's passengers, however, our joy and escape from disaster does not subside as we go on our own individual ways. We get saved, let's say the Titanic, low class, high class, we get saved, right? Me and the rich dude are just holding each other. The boat comes and saves us, and it's cool, man. Whoa, man, we're and I'm like, yo, man, we made it. And he's like, yeah, man, later, I'm rich again. Cool, thank you, but I'll holler at you. And then go on our own separate ways. It's not like that in the program. We all meet together, rich, low class, high class. We all know we have to seek this thing with the desperation of a drowning man. However, our joy and escape from disaster does not subside as we go on our own individual ways. The feeling of having shared in a common peril is one element in the powerful cement, and I circle cement, which binds us. So this is called the commons. Cement. I would circle cement, and I would underline that sentence. Cement is very important. Cement is like this. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. So you got the common peril, the common problem, right? Common problem, and cement is the common problem and the common solution, two of the elements that bind us together. We call them the commons. Both are necessary. So if I go into a meeting and I'm sharing for a group and I'm carrying a message for a particular group, and I say, hey man, I'm talking just about how spiritually awake I am and how beautiful God is, and how beautiful my life is, and how awake I am, and what I do in meditation and stuff like that. The newcomer's probably sitting in there like, I don't know nothing about that, and he can't understand that. So it's important to talk about the common problem. I know you hear a lot of meetings that say, oh, we just talk about the solution here and stuff like that. And the truth is both are necessary. Common problem and common solution. Both are necessary. If I'm not telling you about what happened in the problem and the same difficulty that we talked about before, the same difficulty, which we're going to talk about in the next pages, then you're not going to understand. And the same thing if I'm talking about the problem, then a dude can relate. He's like, yeah, man, cool. Well, yeah, man, I can relate to that. But he don't see the awakeness in your eyes because you're just talking about the problem. So both are necessary. Cement. But that in itself would not have held us together as we are now joined. The tremendous fact for every last one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. Second element in the cement. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism and drug addiction. An illness of this sort, and we have come to believe in an illness, involves those about us in a way no other human sickness can. If a person has cancer, everybody feels sorry for him. No one is angry or hurt. Oh man, poor Mikey got cancer. But not so with the alcoholic illness. For there goes annihilation of all things worthwhile in life. We destroy everything. We engulf all those lives that touch the sufferer. And this is something I ask my guys, is this you? Brings misunderstanding. Is that you? Fierce resentment. Is that you? Financial insecurities, disgusted friends and employers, warped lives of blameless children, sad wives and parents, and anybody can increase the list. Is this you? We hope this volume will inform and comfort those who are or who may be affected. There are many. Highly competent psychiatrists who have dealt with us have found it sometimes impossible to persuade an alcoholic to discuss his situation without reserve. I remember going to the doctor and like I would tell him only what I wanted him to know. For instance, I remember Crystal went to the doctor and she went into a seizure, and I knew it was because of the medication she had took too much. And when going to the doctor, they asked her like, "Did you take anything? Why did you have a seizure?" And she said, "I don't know." And I'm like, and after the doctor left, I'm like, babe, like, he's the doctor. He's like not reporting it to the rehab or anybody. Like he has to help you. So the doctor's about to run all these tests and keep her for a week to run all these tests because he has to figure out why this happened. And I'm like, man, it's funny we lie about this. The people who are trying to help us, we lied to. We all do it, man. Strangely enough, wives, parents, and intimate friends usually find us even more unapproachable than do the psychiatrist and the doctor. We'll tell the doc something, but when mom, I walk in the door and mom's like, "Are you hot?" No, mom. She loves me immensely more than the doctor does, and I'm just like, no, and I'll lie to her and tell her no. There's nothing going on. I'm fine. I would bracket out these whole next two paragraphs. But the ex-problem drinker who has found this solution, who is properly armed with the facts about himself, meaning he's been through the work, can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. Until such an understanding is reached, little or nothing can be accomplished. I definitely would bracket out this whole next paragraph, and next to it, I write, this is what I'm looking for in a sponsor. So if you're listening to this or going to listen to this, on page 18, bottom paragraph is exactly what you're looking for in a sponsor. This is what I want. I remember I tried the dude with all the time. That didn't work for me. I tried the dude with all the material stuff. That didn't work for me. I tried like my friend. That didn't work. And then like I found somebody that fit this description, and it worked for me. That the man who was making the approach has had the same difficulty, not the difficulty of like, man, I've been to jail too, but the same difficulty up here. I pick up and I can't put down. That's part of it, but I'm just like, I can't, no matter what, I can't stop. I got consequences, I got experiences, and I still do it, no matter what. That the man who is making the approach has had the same difficulty, that he obviously knows what he is talking about, that his whole deportment shouts at the new prospect that he is a man with a real answer. He has no attitude of holier than thou, I'm better than you, nothing whatever except a sincere desire to be helpful. That's what you're looking for in a sponsor. that there are no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no come wash my car, can you help me clean my house, no people to please, no lectures to be endured. These are the conditions that we have found most effective. After such an approach, many take up their beds and walk again. None of us makes the sole vocation of this work, nor do we think its effectiveness will be increased if we did. We feel that the elimination of our drinking is but a beginning. That's just a stop drinking and using is only the beginning. A much more important demonstration of our principles lies before us in our respective homes, occupations, and affairs. It's a lot. I underline that because it's a lot more than not using at this point. It's like, how am I living out here? My feet and my mouth matching up. You know, it's pretty cool stuff. The demonstration. All of us spend much of our spare time in that sort of effort which we are going to describe. A few are fortunate enough to be so situated that they can give nearly all their time to the work. These are, it's talking about like people who are financially free, people who are retired. They can, support 100 groups, sponsor 100 guys and stuff like that. And I also like to say this because even though it's not what it's saying, I would like to say this because this is my own personal opinion. It could also mean like people that are in rehab and detox or wherever you're at, your halfway house and don't even have a job yet. And you're just like, you have nothing but time to do the work. You can dedicate nearly all your time to doing this work, and seek the solution out with the desperation of a drowning man. If we keep on the way that we were going, there is little doubt that much good will result. That's true. But the surface of the problem would hardly be scratched. Those of us who live in large cities are overcome by the reflection that close by hundreds are dropping into oblivion every day. We see this with the fentanyl epidemic every day. Many could recover if they had the opportunity that we have enjoyed. How then shall we present which has been so freely given to us? This is how. We have concluded and published an anonymous volume setting forth the problem as we see it, common problem. We shall bring to task our combined experience and knowledge, the solution, the common solution. Experience and knowledge. This should suggest a useful program for anyone concerned with the drinking problem. There's the commons. There's just one brief description of them. Of necessity, there will have to be discussion of matters medical, psychiatric, social, and religious. We are aware that these matters are from their very nature controversial. Nothing would please us as to write a book which would contain no basis for contention or argument. We shall do our utmost to achieve that idea. Most of us sense that number one, you can write next to this. Most of us sense that number one, real tolerance of other people's shortcomings. And number two, viewpoints and respect for their opinions or attitudes which makes us more useful to others. I can start right there. Beginning of the book. This stuff is going to make me more useful to others. Respect of attitudes and respect for their opinions. Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon the constant thought of others and how we can help meet their needs, not ours. You may already have asked yourself, why is it that all of us become so very ill from drinking? Doubtless you are curious to discover how and why in the face of expert opinion to the contrary. You're wondering how, even though the most major, educated, well-known doctors in the world are saying we're hopeless and doomed, you're wondering how we have recovered from a hopeless condition of the mind and body. If you are an alcoholic who wants to get over it, you may already be asking, what do I got to do? Well, I underline this and I put next to it one of the purposes of the book. It is the purpose of this book to answer such questions specifically. The book is going to answer how we have recovered specifically. We shall tell you what we have done, and before going into a detailed discussion, it may be well to summarize some points as we see them. How many times have people said to us, I can take it or leave it alone. Why can't you? Just stop. Why don't you just drink a beer, man? Why don't you not smoke weed and do coke? Just lay off the drugs and just drink. Why can't he? Why don't you drink like a gentleman or just quit, man? Just stop. That fellow can't handle his liquor. Why don't you try beer instead of wine, man? Just sniff the coke. Don't smoke it. We should stop. He could stop if he wanted to. Oh, man, they always think that's people that don't have this think that this is feasible. They think that we can do this. She's such a sweet girl. I think he would stop for her sake. The doctor told him if he ever drank again, it would kill him. My brother. But there he is, all lit up again. Me. Now, these are commonplace observations on drinkers, which we hear all the time. People have been telling us that our whole life. Back of them is a world of ignorance and misunderstanding. They just don't get it. We see that these expressions refer to people whose reactions are a hell of a lot different than ours are. They don't pick up and not be able to put it down. They don't develop the phenomenon of craving that no matter what consequence or what is at stake, we do it. They don't develop that. We do. My brother Barry, my oldest brother, does it. He can drink a beer on freaking Friday and stop and won't see him drink another beer till Christmas. I can't do that. So now this is important information. These are the types of drinkers. There's 3 types. So the first one is the moderate drinkers. I would highlight or underline moderate drinkers. You can write next to it types of drinkers so you know where it is in your book. Moderate drinkers have little trouble in giving it up liquor entirely if they have good reason for it. They can take it or leave it alone. My mother and father have not had alcohol in the house for many years. They drank every now and then. Now they do not. They're like, you know what? Hell no. We don't want this stuff in the house. I don't want them, and out of respect for us, they don't have to do that, but they do. And they can. It's no problem for them. I've seen people drink. I've been over this. My friend, I did a moving job for her, and I moved her, and she had a glass of wine and drank half of it, and they were just sitting there, and I'm just looking at the glass of wine how is that possible? How is that possible? You just have a glass of wine and not touch the rest. And that's these type of people, moderate drinkers, man. They can take it or leave it alone. It makes no difference. You want to go out drinking tonight? Nah, man, I don't feel like I don't drink no more. And for us, we'd be like, what? What are you talking about? You don't drink no more. And he's just like, it's nothing to him. He doesn't have the same thing. It's like, yeah, man, it's not good for me. That's it, done. Then we have a certain type of underline, highlight, hard drinker. Hard drinker. He may have the habit badly enough to gradually impair him physically and mentally. He might be drinking blackout. He might freaking be stumbling all around. It might impair him. It may even cause him to die a few years before his time. He drinks every weekend hard and then stops and then goes to work all through the week. If A, and I circle A because if A, sufficiently strong reason, ill health, doctor says, yo man, you need to stop drinking, they can stop. Falling in love, my girl don't like it, I'd just rather spend time with her than go to the bar. I went to the bar to find her, I found her, it's cool, we're done, we're getting married now. Change of environment and just moving away. I got some stuff, there's different stuff going on. I don't got time to be hanging out with y'all no more. Or the warning of a doctor becomes operative. Yo, if you don't stop, this guy, he can also stop or moderate. Although he may find it difficult and troublesome and may even need medical attention. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. So you got, you might even see this guy at Detox. And he might even have you convinced to think that you're like him because he does it. And this guy, we're talking about this, they're all through the groups too. So this guy might be like one of those guys that he got a DUI. The judge sent him to the meetings, right? And do some meetings, and he'd been to the meetings, and he'd been here ever since, thinking that he's an alcoholic. This is a guy that that you'll hear speak, and he'll say that he has 30 years clean and sober, and you won't hear him talk about anything about steps. And that's cool, right? That's cool. People, they're in the rooms. You'll know them. Anybody been through the work knows them when you hear them. The moderate drinker, and he's like he like went on a binge for like 3 days in '87, and freaking all of a sudden, he was like, oh, whoa, I gotta stop, and he got a DUI, came to the program and been sober, met some friends, and been here ever since. And you might even meet him at detox. He might have came to detox once. Like, we're not, if you're trying to think that you are a moderate drinker, we're not talking about you've been to detox 30 times and you're a moderate drinker. You've been to detox a bunch of times, rehabs, hospitals, sanitariums, and all that stuff, and still trying to believe that you're a moderate drinker and you can do like this dude does when a situation arises, you can stop. This guy been to detox like once. He had a bad weekend. But what about and I underline and highlight, real alcoholic? He may start off as a moderate drinker. He may or may not become a continuous hard drinker. But at some stage of my drinking career, I began to lose all control of my liquor and drug consumption once I start to pick one up. Here's the fellow who has been puzzling you, especially in his lack of control. He does absurd, incredibly tragic things while drinking. We are the real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We are seldom mildly intoxicated. We are always more or less insanely drunk. Our disposition while drinking resembles our normal nature but little. We may be one of the finest fellows in the world, but let us drink for a day and we frequently become disgustingly and even dangerously antisocial. We have a positive genius for getting tight at the exact wrong moment, particularly when some important decision must be made or an engagement kept. He is often perfectly sensible and well-balanced concerning everything except liquor. But in that respect, he is incredibly dishonest and selfish. We often possess special abilities, skills, and aptitudes, and we have a promising career ahead of us. But we use our gifts to build up a bright outlook for our family and ourselves, and then we pull the structure down on our head in a senseless series of sprees. We are the fellow who goes to bed so intoxicated and high that we ought to sleep the clock around as we ain't slept in 9 days. Yet early the next morning we search madly for the bottle or the bag or the pipe we misplaced the night before. If we can afford it, we may have stuff concealed all over the house to be certain that nobody gets our entire supply to throw away or use theirself. As matters grow worse, we begin to use a combination of, underline this is the big book of AA now, high-powered sedative. What are they talking about? Drugs and liquor to quiet his nerves so he can go to work. Now I need high-powered sedatives and liquor just to go to work. Then comes a day when he simply cannot make it and get drunk, and he gets drunk and high all over again. Perhaps he goes to, remember, oh man, I know you guys know about the third day. 1 day, tough. 2 days, super tough. I get to that third day. Just can't make it. Just can't make it through the third day. This is by no means a comprehensive, when it comes to days simply cannot make it, get drunks all over again. Perhaps we go to a doctor who gives us Suboxone and some sedatives and some anxiety medication like Xanax or Ambience. Morphine or some sedative is what it says. We're talking about drugs with which to taper off. He then begins to appear at, hospitals and sanitariums. That's comical to me because like I got 2 questions for a detox when I call. Do you have Suboxone? And do you have volume to taper me off of my Xanax use, which I didn't even use? You know, this is by no means a comprehensive picture of the true alcoholic because our behavior patterns vary. Yours might be different from mine. But this description should identify you roughly. It describes me. Why does he behave like this? If hundreds, personal experience, if thousands, and I wrote it on top of there, if thousands of experiences have shown me that one drink means another debacle with all its attendant suffering, jail, institutions, I'm going to die, and humiliation, people are going to look down upon me, why the hell do I take the first one when I know that this is what's going to happen? Why can't we stay on the water wagon? What has become of the common sense and willpower that we still display in other matters? Perhaps there will never be a full answer to this question. Opinions vary considerably as to why the alcoholic reacts differently from normal people. We are not sure why once a certain point is reached, as soon as I cross that like invisible line, little or nothing can be done for him, man. We can't answer the riddle. We know that while an alcoholic keeps away from drink, as he may do for months or years, he reacts like other men. We're equally positive that once he takes alcohol, whatever, into his system, something happens, both in the body and in the mind sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. Does that sound like you? Something happens every single time I put something in my body. Something happens. The experience of any alcoholic and drug addict will abundantly confirm this. I can confirm this abundantly with hundreds and thousands of experiences of mine. And I write next to that, do I believe this now? Every time I take someone through the book, do I still believe right now that when I pick up anything, for me, anything, that something happens? Yes, I do. I do. Something happens to me each and every time I pick up. So now we're going to, this is what we went through is like a lot of the physical allergy, what happens to me physically from doctor's opinion pretty much to now. You know, it's talking a lot about the physical, both physical and mental. But now we're going to get into the mental states which precede a relapse into drinking. What happens in here? I'm talking about like the times that I'm clean. There's nothing in my system. I'm 100% sober. I can piss clean. You can take a blood test, take a hair follicle. There's absolutely nothing in my system. And then somehow on my way to the probation office, I say, she ain't gonna piss me this time. And get high on my way to the PO. Insane stuff. Or I tell myself, you know what, she's going to piss. And I got hundreds of experiences with the exact same lie. It's impossible for me to, she's going to piss me every week. I'm going to the PO. I get to the PO. I piss. I'm clean. And then I leave and I'm like, and this insane thought comes up, although I got hundreds of experiences and thousands of consequences that show me it's impossible. This thought comes up and says, you got 3 days. You got 3 days, man. 3 days, man. You can use today and you'll be clean before she pisses you again, Matt. It's fine. And I believe the lie, the insane lie wins out and I do it again. So let's get into that, the mental part of it. I usually stop here with a guy, but you can put a mark through it. We'll stop at the next page. You can put a line through there and put mental, because that's what we're about to discuss. These observations will be academic, which means good to know, and pointless if our friend never took the first one, thereby setting a terrible cycle in motion. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. If you ask him why he started on the last bender, chances are he'll offer you one of 100 alibis. My mom was sick. I went on a cruise. I lost my job. I got a job. I mean, you name it. We got an excuse for everything, you know. I was around Mike and they pulled it out and I was like, oh, F it, you know. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic's drinking bout creates. A family member passed away. That's why I started drinking, and then I just like ransacked everybody's stuff, stole stuff, and the whole family now is wondering if I'm okay. They can't even mourn over the loss of whoever, and it never makes any sense for me to do it. They sound like the philosophy of a man who, having a headache, beats himself in the head with a hammer so he can't feel the ache. If you draw this fallacious reasoning to the attention of an alcoholic, he'll laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk. Once in a while, he may tell the truth. And the truth, strange to say, is usually that he has no more idea why he took the first one than you do. I remember I was carrying a message at the rehab that I met Crystal at before she passed away, and or after she passed away actually, and I was carrying the message, and there was a kid up front, and he rose his hand to speak, and he was like, he's in like tears, and he's like, my mom asked me, why am I doing this? And he said, I had to tell her, man, I don't know. And I just was like, oh man, that's the truth. I don't know. I don't know why I'm doing it. I keep coming up with these excuses, and it's me making the excuses so that it sounds sensible. It's like, oh, well, I mean, you ain't really got a problem. I mean, it's me. I got this thing I got a disease that tells me I don't got a disease, and I'm the only one that can say that I have the disease. So, of course, it's telling me stuff, and it sounds like me, and I'm thinking it is me, and I tell myself I can, and here's how. Man, he has no idea why he did it than you do, man. Some drinkers have excuses with they are satisfied part of the time. But in their hearts, they really do not know why they do it. Think about it. Really go in your own heart and your own experiences and when you were making excuses why to do it, if any of them were legitimate. There's the obsession, once this malady has a real hold, we're a baffled lot. There's the obsession that somehow, someday, we'll beat the game. I'll win this time. But they often suspect they are down for the count, especially when I'm in prison. How true this is, few realize. In a vague way, their families and friends sense that these drinkers are abnormal. They know something's wrong, but everybody hopefully awaits the day that the sufferer will rouse himself from his lethargy and assert his power of will. I would convince my mother that this time, when I get home, I'm telling you, Pop, this is what I'm going to do, Mom. I got it this time. I done did the Key program, Crest, New Visions, Green Tree, and all the mental health places they did. Oh, man, I'm good. I am never going to do that again. And they think that's logical to them. They think that that's possible. And then I do it again. Because I think that I walk around with some index cards with my triggers in my pocket, I'll be okay. I wasn't. The tragic truth is that if the man be a real deal alcoholic and drug addict like myself, that happy day may not arrive. He has lost all control. At a certain point in the drinking of every last one of us, we pass into the state of where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is absolutely of no avail. Your kids at the door begging you to stay home with them. For me, my most powerful desire was my mother. I didn't want to put her through that again and go to prison. And I'm walking out the door and she grabs my jacket at the steps and says, Matt, please just stay with me. I'll cook you dinner. I'll just stay. We'll watch a movie. Just stay with me, baby. Stay with me tonight. And it wasn't enough, man. This tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case, long before it is suspected. And now looking back, I see that I lost control a long time ago. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power and choice in drinking. Choice. Two or more reasonable options, or the best part. Two or more reasonable, keyword, options, or the best part. So it was never reasonable for me to do it. It's never been a reasonable option, or the best part for that matter. So by definition, I lost my choice. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into the consciousness with sufficient force the memory and the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. I get out of prison from just doing a long, extensive, let's say this time 5.5-year bit. I get out, and a week later, I'm in the mix. I was there for drug and alcoholic consumption because I did something under the influence, idiotic. And then I get out and I forget. I'm talking about give me a couple hours where I just said before I went to sleep, I am done. I'm never doing this again. And I wake up and I'm like, that thing starts to hit me. And I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta go. The almost certain we are without defense against the first drink. Nobody can give you that defense. There's nobody to come in to connect the wires in my head that keep me from drinking. The almost certain consequences. I'm definitely going to jail or end up dead. That following taking even a glass of beer. And I know this. They don't crowd into mind to deter us when I'm doing it. It does not even, that's unbelievable. If these thoughts occur, they are hazy and readily supplanted with the old thoroughbred idea that this time I'll handle myself like other people. Gosh, the built-in forgetter. There is the complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting our hand on a hot stove. The alcoholic may say to himself in the most casual way, ain't gonna burn me this time, here's how. Or perhaps we don't think at all. How often have some of us begun to drink in this nonchalant way, and after the third or fourth, pounded on the bar and said, how the fudge did I get here again? How did I do this again? For God's sake, how did I get started? Only to have that thought supplanted by, well, I'll stop in after the next bundle. What's the use anyhow? When this sort of thinking, is this your sort of thinking, I want to ask? Is this your sort of thinking? When this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, and if you think like this, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid, and I underline that. So I get people to admit that. Like, is this your thinking? Does this sound like you? And we're talking about it and sharing experiences and stuff like that, man, and or whatever. And when he says, yeah, okay, you placed yourself beyond human aid. 1 second. I'm going to go die or permanently insane. These stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions, thousands and thousands of alcoholics throughout history. These facts have been confirmed. They have confirmed that this is a fact. These stark and ugly facts, man, have been by every alcoholic throughout history. But for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. Thank you, God, man. Thank you. Thank you for saving me, an unsavable, unsalvageable person. So many want to stop, but they can't. Let me see where we're at. We got 10 minutes. We can do this. Cool. There is a solution. Cool stuff. That's beautiful information for someone who's freaking hopeless and beaten and broken and beyond hope. Almost none of us like the self-searching and leveling of our pride. What's that sound like? The confession of shortcomings which the process requires for a successful consummation. Put a line through process, and above it write steps 1 through 5. Because that's what we're talking about. Leveling of our pride, confession of shortcomings, right? Which the process 1 through 5, this is steps 1 through 5. This is what they need to do. That's what he's talking about. It's required for a successful consummation. But we saw that it really worked in others. Remember the demonstration? I'm seeing demonstrations of people that were just like me done that are now sober and clean. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we've been living it. Of course, I live life, I'm in jail or dead every time. When therefore we are approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us to do but pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. This book, the triangle, meetings, the book, service, all that. This book, we have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence by which we had never even dreamed. This is the honest to God truth, man. The great fact, this is important. I highlight, underline, circle with a twist. The great fact is just this and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences. That's what happened to us, which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life and toward our fellows and toward God's universe. The demonstration in all my affairs, trying to do this stuff everywhere, man. Are we perfect? No, none of us are. That's just what we do, but we try to do this and live this life. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator, doesn't sound, I ain't going to get into it, man. Creator, our Creator, higher power, our Creator has entered into our lives and hearts in a way which is indeed miraculous. Yes, it is. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we can never do by ourselves. If you are as seriously alcoholic as we were, we believe that there is no middle of the road solution. It's a T in the road. We were in a position where life was becoming impossible. Is this you? And if we passed into the region from which there is no return through human aid, which we just established that we were beyond human aid on the page before this, then we had but two alternatives. Two alternatives. The book makes it real clear and distinct. One, go on best you can to the bitter end, blocking out the consciousness of our intolerable situation best we could. And the other, accept spiritual help. That's it, man. I'm either going on best I can or I'm accepting spiritual help. And this we did because we honestly wanted to. And we were willing to make the effort. So we'll stop there, because this is some really cool stuff and we're not going to have time to get into it. It's about to go down. So there's some cool stuff here that's about to take place. So thank you guys for participating. Man, I really want to get into this right now. I can't. It's just too much. So we'll get back to this. Let's just try it, man. We're going to run a little over. We're going to run like maybe 5 or 10 minutes over. We'll see. A certain American businessman, underlined businessman, that's Roland Hazard. That's the guy who came, when we went through Bill's story, the guy, he was one of the guys that came to suspend Ebby Thatcher's commitment. Ebby Thatcher's the guy who took the message to Bill. So Roland Hazard's that dude. He's like big money, man. We're talking about like having Donald Trump shine his shoes type of dude, big money. So a certain American businessman, he's one of the guys that came in from the Oxford group, had ability, good sense, high character. For years, he had floundered from one sanitarium to another. He had consulted the best known underlying American psychiatrists. Sigmund Freud. Look him up. We're talking about like the godfather of psychiatry. He wanted to go to him. That dude said no, because they were like alpha omega type people. If it's kind of like a lawyer today. A trial lawyer is not going to go to trial with a case he's going to lose. Sigmund Freud didn't want to lose a case. He told him he couldn't help him. He knew about the alcoholic dilemma. You're doomed. So he sent him to his underling, an American psychiatrist. He said, if Sigmund Freud can't help you, I can't help you. Cool, good. Because both of those guys weren't like spiritual guys. Thank God for that. God again, man, in the book. We had consulted the best known American psychiatrists. Then after that, and they gave him no hope, then he had gone to Europe. Flew to Europe, placing himself in the care of a celebrated physician, the psychiatrist Dr. Jung. Another world-renowned dude, man, who prescribed for him. Though experience had made him skeptical, he finished his treatment with unusual confidence. His physical condition was great. Mental condition was great, was unusually good. Above all, he believed he had acquired such profound knowledge of the inner workings of his mind and hidden springs that relapse was unthinkable. Body, I'm feeling good physically. My mind is amazing. I feel great. Everything's cool. Relapse is unthinkable. I know that I got some knowledge about my condition now. That's me getting out of rehab and jail every time. Nevertheless, he was drunk in a short time, and that's my story. More baffling still, he couldn't give you a satisfactory explanation for his fall. So he returned to the doctor whom he admired and asked him point blank why he could not recover. He wished above all things he wants to stop. He don't want to keep doing this to regain self-control. He seemed quite rational and well-balanced with respect to other problems. He's good in his worldly life. Yet he had no control over alcohol and drugs, man, just like me. Why was this? He begged the doctor the whole truth, to give him the whole truth, and he got it. Here's another world-renowned, highly educated doctor's opinion. In the doctor's judgment, he was utterly hopeless. He could never regain his position in society, and he would have to place himself under lock and key or hire a bodyguard if he expected to live long. That was a great physician's opinion. But this man still lives. This man still lives. You guys still live. Man, and we're free men and women. We don't need a bodyguard, nor are we confined. We can go anywhere on this earth where free men may go without disaster, provided we remain willing to maintain a certain simple attitude, humility. There's no way for me to use successfully anything for that matter. The doctor said, some of our alcoholic readers may think that they can do without spiritual help. Well, let us tell you the rest of the conversation our friend had with the doctor. The doctor said, you have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. I have never, this is the highly educated, world-renowned doctor. I have never seen not one single case where the state of mind exists like it does in you. Not one recover. I ain't seen not one single case recover where he was a real alcoholic. Our friend felt as though the gates of hell had closed with a clang. He said to the doctor, man, ain't there an exception, doc? He said to the doctor, yes, replied the doctor, there is. There is exceptions. Exceptions to cases such as yours have been occurring since early times. It's my personal opinion that he may have came into contact with some moderate or heavy drinkers that went through the Oxford group. came in some contact with them. Because remember, he's just saying, where the real alcoholic, I ain't never seen one case recover. So I'm assuming he's talking about some heavy drinkers. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have had what are called vital spiritual experiences. To me, these occurrences are a phenomenon. I don't understand them. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begins to dominate them. In fact, I remember, this is the doc talking. I have been trying to produce some such emotional rearrangement within you. With many individuals, the methods which I employed are successful. But I ain't never been successful with an alcoholic of your description. Whew. Upon hearing this, our friend was somewhat relieved, for he reflected that after all, he was a good church member. But the doc said, although you go to church, his hope, however, was destroyed when the doctor telling him that his religious convictions were good, but that's not what we're talking about, and they don't spell the necessary spiritual experience. Here was the terrible dilemma in which our friend found himself when he had the extraordinary experience, which we have already told you had made him a free man. We, in our turn, sought the same escape with the desperation of a drowning man. What seemed at first to be a flimsy reed. I've been to 100 rehabs and detoxes and prison and all the institutions and doctors and therapists and counselors and everything, and you try and tell me this is going to help me? Yeah, man, 100%. This book seemed at first to be a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God. A new life has been given to us, or if you prefer, a design of living that really works. A distinguished American psychologist, William James, in his book Varieties of Religious Experience, indicates a multitude of ways which men have discovered God. We have no desire to convince anyone that there's only one way by which faith in God can be acquired. If what we have learned, felt, and seen means anything at all, it means that all of us, whatever our race, creed, and color, are children of a living Creator with whom we may build a relationship with simple and understandable terms as soon as we are willing and honest enough to try. Honest from here. Those having religious affiliations will find nothing disturbing about their beliefs and ceremonies. There is no friction among such matters, over such matters. We think it no concern of ours what religious bodies our members identify themselves with as individuals. Don't matter. This should be an entirely personal affair for which each one decides for himself in the light of past associations, how you grew up, or your present choice. Doesn't matter, but you need to find the living Creator. Not all of us join religious bodies, but most of us favor such memberships. In the following chapter, there appears an explanation of alcoholism as we understand it. Then a chapter to the agnostic. And the agnostic isn't saying it's cool to be agnostic, but we'll get there. Many who once were in this class are now among our members. Surprisingly enough, we find such convictions no great obstacle to a spiritual experience. You can still have a spiritual experience. Further on, I underline this because it's part of the book. It's telling me what the book is about again. Clear-cut directions are given showing how we have recovered. These are followed by 42 personal experiences. Let's talk about what the stories in the back are for. Each individual in the personal stories, and this is what I'm talking about when I'm asked to carry the message, describes in his All the these are speaker tapes. All the 42 personal stories. They're like speaker tapes in written form is all they are. And they're not about how people got sober. They're about how people established their relationship with God, as we're about to read. Each individual in the personal stories describes in his own language and from his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God. And I wrote next to that, not got sober. These give a fair cross-section of our membership and a clear cut, there's that word again, idea of what has actually happened in our lives. We hope that no one will consider these self-revealing accounts in bad taste. Our hope is that many alcoholic men and women desperately in need will see these pages and believe that it's only by fully disclosing ourselves common problem or a common solution is fully disclosing ourselves and our problems. There's the commons, the cement, and they will be persuaded to say, yes, I am one of them too. Yes, I must have this thing. Bottom of the page, real quick, 3 definitions. Power. The definition of power is strength. Control. Definition of control, ability to regulate. And I write choice. Definition of choice, 2 or more reasonable options, or the best part. If you lose one, I also write this at the bottom of that after I write those definitions. If you lose one, you lose all 3. God bless y'all, man. Have a good night. Thank you for tuning in, man. Thank God for this day, man, that we're like clean and sober and allowed to hear or carry the message, man. What a beautiful thing, man. And we'll get into more about alcoholism Saturday, which is going to be magnificent. Thank you, guys. God bless. Good night.